You're not married?
Why not?
You should be!
I know.
We'll find someone!
There is a very specific kind of silence that can follow a simple question. So, when are you getting married? Sometimes people ask it casually. Sometimes they ask it like they are checking whether your life is still on schedule. And even if you smile, even if you already know how to answer, something in you may tighten for a second. Not always because you want marriage right now. Not always because you are unhappy. Sometimes it happens because you are tired of being treated like your life is a waiting room. Tired of the way people can look at a full human being and still speak as if the story has not started yet. If that feels familiar, research suggests the pain is not only about relationship status, it is also about how culture teaches people to see unmarried adults and how those messages quietly get under the skin. For a long time, psychology and popular culture treated marriage like the default path to adulthood, stability, and meaning. Bella DePaulo called one part of this pattern singleism, the tendency to stereotype single people as lonelier, less mature, more self-centered, or somehow unfinished. More recent research suggests those assumptions still linger. Single adults can face subtle forms of discrimination, lower perceived support, and social treatment that implies their lives are less legitimate. So, if being unmarried sometimes makes you feel like you have to explain yourself more than other people do, that feeling may not be coming from inside you alone. Part of it may be the pressure of living in a culture that keeps putting relationships on a pedestal. And that pedestal matters more than people think. Researchers have found that fear of being single often grows stronger when people internalize the idea that a relationship is necessary for a meaningful life. Once that belief takes hold, being unmarried can start to feel less like a neutral fact and more like a verdict. You compare your timeline to other people's. You notice every wedding photo, every family question, every passing comment about settling down. What hurts is not always the absence of a partner. Sometimes it is the feeling that your life is being measured against a script you did not fully write. That is why two people can have the same relationship status and feel completely different inside it. One feels peaceful, the other feels behind. The difference is often not the status itself, it is the meaning attached to it. This is where psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan become useful, even if we keep the idea simple. Their work on self-determination suggests people function best when three needs are supported: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. In other words, human beings suffer when they feel controlled, diminished, or disconnected. Being unmarried does not automatically block any of those needs. You can be deeply connected without being married. You can build a competent, meaningful life without a spouse. You can feel more like yourself alone than you ever did in the wrong relationship. But social pressure can quietly attack autonomy by making people feel that they are failing if they do not choose what everyone else expects. And once autonomy is threatened, even a peaceful single life can start to feel heavy under the gaze of other people. Research on single adults also shows something else that is easy to miss. When unmarried people report lower life satisfaction, the reason is often not simply that they are single. It can be partly explained by lower perceived social support and by negative treatment from others. That is a very different story. It suggests the distress is not always produced by unmarried life itself. Sometimes it is produced by how unmarried people are treated, the judgment, the pity, the assumption that independence must secretly be loneliness. In other words, what drains many unmarried adults is not only solitude, it is stigma. And stigma has a way of making people question parts of themselves that were not broken to begin with. At the same time, the opposite myth is not true either. It is not psychologically honest to pretend that everyone who is unmarried is automatically thriving. Some people are content, grounded, and deeply fulfilled. Others feel grief, longing, confusion, or fear, and some move between all of those states at once. Research on well-being in relationships consistently finds that relationship quality matters enormously. Being married is not a magic shield. High-quality relationships are linked to better well-being, but strained or low-quality marriages can carry their own psychological cost. That means the real comparison is not married versus unmarried in some simple way. It is often peace versus strain, authenticity versus pressure, support versus loneliness. And people can experience any of those in either category. That may be why some unmarried people feel unexpectedly calm once they stop trying to look normal to everyone else. They begin to realize that not all loneliness comes from being alone. Some of it comes from performing a life that does not fit. Some of it comes from saying yes to timelines, rituals, and expectations that create more anxiety than meaning. Research reviewed in recent years suggests that single adults are far more diverse than older stereotypes allowed. Some actively seek partnership. Some date casually. Some do not date at all. Some experience low pressure from others and feel fine. Others experience high pressure and carry that stress every day. The category is not one thing, because human beings are not one thing. And maybe that is the part nobody says clearly enough. Being unmarried is not a personality test, a diagnosis, or a warning sign. It does not automatically mean freedom, and it does not automatically mean lack. It means your life, at least right now, is taking a shape that does not fit the script some people expected. That can be painful. It can also be clarifying, because once the noise settles, you are left with a more honest question. Not, how do I catch up? But, what kind of life actually feels true to me? Research from Pew has found that when people think about a fulfilling life, they often prioritize things like friendship and job satisfaction over marriage and parenthood. That does not make marriage unimportant. It simply reminds us that a meaningful life has more than one architecture. So if you are unmarried and sometimes feel like everyone else received a map you missed, maybe pause there for a second. Maybe your life is not late. Maybe it is just less scripted. Maybe the discomfort you feel is not proof that something is wrong with you, but proof that social pressure is loud. And maybe the deeper task is not to panic your way into the nearest acceptable story, but to build a life that is emotionally coherent, whether someone stands beside you in the photo or not. If this felt familiar, like, subscribe, and share. Someone else may need this reminder more than they know.